Hey everybody, Floral Bobby here. Before we get started, I have a few names I want to call off. Came out of the comment section of not my last video because it was just a real short one, but the one before that. We're going to start off with my good friend Barney Fife. K. Earl Long, good to see you. Heather Arthur, Dennis Grimm, Amy Oo, Love's Light, and Sharon McComas. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for your comments. Keep commenting, keep watching. Well, people, tonight we're going to talk about the history of Muhammad. It might be a long video, I hope not. But let's put it this way, I've done a lot of writing on this man today. Muhammad was born around 570 AD. His father died before he was born, and his mother died when he was about 6 years old. Muhammad is lost to history pretty much until he began receiving revelations from Allah by angels. In 1610 AD, Muhammad was alone. He was in a cave and he was on a religious retreat. And it was in this cave that an angel gave him the command of God. Muhammad was terrified because he believed that he had encountered a demon, and he became suicidal. But Muhammad's wife and her cousin convinced him that he had been with Gabriel in that cave that day, and now he believes himself to be the prophet of God because these two women convinced him it wasn't a demon. Well, Muhammad was hated in Mecca for his teachings, and he was not welcome there. He was persecuted for his preachings of Allah, and in 1622 AD, Muhammad and his followers moved to Medina, about 300 miles from Mecca. It was in Medina that the Muslims became a political entity, which is a central core of Islam. From Medina, Muhammad and his followers began to raid caravans going to and from Mecca. He had a real anger toward Mecca, and he intended to raid every caravan headed or coming from Mecca. Well, the first 6 raids were unsuccessful, but the 7th raid was a complete success, and the 7th raid was during the Muslim holy month. And that's when no one's supposed to fight or wage war. So he broke that big law right there. You know, the war between Muhammad and Mecca went on for years and years. They just did not like each other. Well, Muhammad's armies attacked Jerusalem settlements and destroyed them utterly. It was around this time that Muhammad received a message from Allah ordering Muslims to fight and kill Jews and Christians until they submit to Allah. Obeying this command from Allah, Muhammad defeated the Byzantine Empire, but then he died soon after. Muslims today say Muhammad was the greatest moral example that has ever existed. I say Muhammad was the worst moral example possible, and he still is a terrible moral authority. Muslims focus on the good in Muhammad and totally ignore his evil qualities. After some success of robbing caravans, people flocked to the Muslim faith due to their greed, and they wanted some of the spoils and the wealth that Muhammad possessed after robbing these caravans. While in Medina, Muhammad tolerated no criticism of him or the Muslim faith. Many people died speaking against Muhammad. Jews and Christians tried to form an alliance, but Muhammad was just too strong, and after a 25-day siege of the Jewish alliance compound, the alliance surrendered to Muhammad. Well, Muhammad took them back to Medina, and Muhammad went to the marketplace and he had trenches dug. These were mass graves, people. These people were digging their own graves. Not graves for the fallen Muslim fighters, but for their survivors who had just surrendered to this beast Muhammad. As many as 900 people were confined in Medina, and small groups of Jews and Christians were beheaded and thrown into the trench that they had just dug in the marketplace. Every male who had reached puberty was killed. The women and children became property of these men, but Muhammad kept 1/5 of the women and children for himself. It gets a little worse, people. As Muslim armies raided town after town and captured many women and children. But get this, Muhammad's men were far from their wives, and they desired these female captives. So Muhammad was given a revelation from Allah by an angel, and he said, it's okay for your men to go out here and rape these women that they've taken captive. I guess all you had to do was pray to Allah, and He would send you a messenger telling you to do whatever it is that you're wanting to do. They wanted to rape these women, and so Allah gave them permission. In the Quran, 4:24, and in 23:1-6, and in other verses, but this granted Muslims the right to have sex with captives. The most disturbing is the fact that Muslims have sex with little girls before puberty. So sick. Muhammad himself had sex with a pubescent girl named Ashia. He married this child when she was 6 years old, and he actually waited 3 years till she was 9 before he had sex with her, before he raped her, in my opinion. Evidence shows clearly that Muhammad was immoral to the core. And I don't believe for 1 minute that God called him or sent him to the world as a prophet. We Christians hold to our faith, believing Jesus was divine, died on the cross, and rose from the dead on the 3rd day. Christian history is a big problem for Muslims, and if Islam had its way, Christianity and Judaism would be gone from the earth. People, this is my opinion, but Islam is a cult. It's risen out of the hot sands of the desert, and I don't believe for 1 minute that Gabriel visited Muhammad. I believe Muhammad did just the right thing after he had this visitation. He needed to be suicidal because he was visited by a demon. In my opinion, he was visited by a demon and not an angel, because this man surely was not a god. And if he had a vision at all about Islam, I'm sure it was Satan and his hordes that put it in his head. Do not be deceived. Muhammad and the devoted Muslims are pedophiles, pure and simple. It's easy to understand, and they're willing to know the truth. You can believe the truth because it lives here. Muhammad and his men were pedophiles and homosexuals. There's no doubt about it. It was fine for men to have sex with young boys. It was prestigious. You had a big name in the community if you had a boy sex slave. So, people, these Muslims are liars, and they don't even know what they believe. All they know is they hate Jews and Christians, and we're the infidels, and we should all be dead. We can thank Muhammad for that. People, this is Deplorable Bobby, and I've said enough about that demon tonight. Y'all have a good night. Remember our children. Pray for our children. Pray for each other. And I'll see you later.